Okay, so if you're one of the, 170 million Americans scrolling, creating, maybe even advertising on that big short-form video app,
Right.
you are probably feeling the heat. This huge platform, I mean, culturally, economically, it was facing a potential shutdown here in the U.S., like a hard stop.
It was really unprecedented. You had this piece of legislation aimed at national security, right? Protecting against foreign influence. But it was directly clashing with the digital lives and, honestly, the livelihoods of just a massive number of Americans. And that deadline, it was looming.
It really was.
Yeah.
But then, just last month, boom, a new executive order drops. And it details what looks like a pretty dramatic full-on solution. So our mission today, let's crack open that document. We want to explain, in plain language, the framework the government set up, how they plan to save the platform while securing American data and algorithms.
And the source here is key. We're looking right at the official White House executive order. It's about applying the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. That's the law that started all this. We're going to dig into the mechanics of this proposed fix, how they define safe legally, and, what this whole saga could mean for other digital platforms down the road.
Right. Let's start with that ticking clock, because the initial fear, it felt very real, was that the app would just vanish overnight.
That was definitely the vibe the legislation created. The core problem, as Congress saw it, was the national security community raising these serious flags. Concerns that the app, because of its parent company based in China, was controlled by a foreign adversary. That specific legal term, that's what triggered the act. It basically said, sell it or shut it down.
And the original date, the day the prohibitions kick in, no more distribution, no more updates, basically making the app unusable. That was January 19th, 2025. That felt pretty firm at first.
It did. But what's really interesting, I think, is you could see the government actually trying to find a way out. They clearly preferred a workable solution over, economic mess. You saw this pattern, right? Multiple executive orders acting like temporary stays of execution. They kept pushing the date, first to April.
Then June.
Then September.
So forgetting the specific EO numbers for a second, because honestly, who can keep track? The pattern itself tells a story. It shows the U.S. government, even with this huge leverage, this hammer from the act, was actively negotiating, trying to find some common ground, some security fix they could accept.
Precisely. And this latest order, the one laying out the solution we're diving into, pushes the deadline again. Now it's December 16th, 2025. And this extra 120 days, it's explicitly there to give everyone time to finalize the complicated details of this new deal, the framework agreement.
Okay, so they bought themselves the time needed. But the deal itself, it had to meet this specific legal standard in the act, a qualified divestiture. Oh. Now, that sounds like fancy legal speak for sell the company, but I'm guessing it's a bit more involved than just handing over the keys.
Oh, much more involved.
And this is probably the most crucial bit of jargon we need to simplify here. A qualified divestiture under this act is incredibly strict. It's not just, hey, sell off a majority stake. Nope. It has to meet two, let's say, non-negotiable tests.
Okay, lay them out for us. What are these two tests the deal absolutely had to pass?
Test number one. The application has to demonstrably, provably, no longer be controlled by a foreign adversary. That's the ownership part. Pretty straightforward conceptually. Test number two, and this gets to the technical core, it must prevent any of the old affiliated companies from keeping an operational relationship with the new U.S. operations. Fail either test, the whole deal's dead in the water.
That phrase, operational relationship, that's where it gets really sticky, technically speaking, right?
Yeah.
For you, the listener, how do we picture that separation? How do they make sure that connection is truly cut?
Yeah, think of it like this. The worry was the foreign parent might still have access to either the, let's say, the steering wheel, how the app runs, or the fuel tank, the user data. The executive order itself gets very specific. It explicitly bans two key examples of this forbidden relationship.
Okay, what are those examples?
First, no more cooperation with respect to the operation of a content recommendation algorithm. That's the steering wheel, the secret sauce, deciding what videos you see. That has to be fully controlled here. Second, no agreement with respect to data sharing. That's the fuel tank, the raw user data that powers everything. That flow has to be cut off. So the new deal has to physically and legally sever that technological umbilical cord, connecting those two things back to the original foreign parent.
That makes it much clearer. So this whole massive effort, the delays, the complex legal definitions, it's all aimed at protecting the daily experience of 170 million Americans. Plus, let's not forget, The American businesses, the creators who rely on this platform for advertising, for their actual income, the stakes were way higher than just funny videos.
Absolutely. It was a real balancing act for the government. How do you protect economic freedom, cultural access, and guarantee national security? That tightrope walk led them to the structure in this framework agreement.
Which brings us right to the solution they landed on. What does this new ownership structure look like? How does it satisfy that tricky divestiture requirement?
Okay, the core idea is setting up a brand new company based right here in the US, a joint venture. And its only job is running the application within the United States. Think of it as building a firewall entity.
And ownership changes big time, obviously, to meet that no foreign control rule.
Yeah.
Correct. The new company has to be majority owned and controlled by US persons. The order calls them the investor parties. Now here's where the numbers get critical. To legally eliminate that definition of control under the Act, the original parent company, ByteDance Ltd. And its affiliates, they get to keep a minority stake, but it has to be less than 20% of this new joint venture.
Okay, why less than 20%? Is that just an arbitrary number, or is there a legal reason for that specific threshold?
It's not arbitrary at all. It's directly tied back to how Congress defined control in the Act itself. Often, having a 20% stake or more is seen as a trigger for potential control or significant influence. So, by forcing the original owner below that 20% line, they legally change their status. They go from being potentially a controlling owner to, essentially, a passive financial investor. That's the legal line in the sand that lets the U.S. entity claim independence.
Makes sense. And the management, the governance, that shifts too, right?
But it's completely. The new joint venture gets a whole new board of directors, and they have to be based entirely in the U.S.
And presumably, that board operates under rules designed to ensure security.
Yes, exactly. The structure is set up so that decision-making power is fully localized and aligned with U.S. national security requirements.
All right, so setting up a new U.S.-owned company, that's step one. But the EO really hammers home these 4 specific technical safeguards. These seem to be the things that finally convinced the president this deal was robust enough that it qualified as a qualified divestiture. These feel like the real guts of the agreement.
They absolutely are, and this is where you see the results of that intense interagency review you mentioned. NSC, Treasury, Justice, the VP's office, they put this proposal under a microscope. And they came back with these 4 non-negotiable safeguards that fundamentally change how the application operates on U.S. soil.
Okay, let's walk through them. Safeguard number 1, what's that about?
Safeguard 1 is about control over the core technology. It ensures the new U.S. joint venture gets full, explicit control over running the algorithms, managing the source code, and making all the content moderation decisions. Basically separating the content engine entirely from any foreign influence.
Got it. Control the code, control the content feed. What about Safeguard 2? That tackles the data itself, right?
Yeah.
Where does all that user info live?
Yes, and this is huge for data privacy. Safeguard 2 mandates that all sensitive U.S. user data, your messages, your viewing history, everything must be stored in a cloud environment run by an American company. You used the analogy earlier. It's like moving everything valuable into a super secure vault, and that vault is managed right here, locally, by a trusted U.S. partner. No data physically leaves that secure U.S. environment.
Okay, vault secured. Now, Safeguard 3.
Yeah.
This one feels like maybe the most radical technical intervention I've seen the government mandate in a commercial deal like this.
It is pretty groundbreaking. Safeguard 3 requires that all the recommendation models the algorithms that decide what you see next. If they use any U.S. user data, they have to be completely retrained. And not just retrained once, but continuously monitored by what the order calls United States' trusted security partner.
Whoa, okay, retrained. So it's not just about stopping future bad stuff. It's like a legal order to, scrub the past. They're essentially mandating the system unlearns anything it might have picked up, any biases or potential manipulation points baked in while it was under foreign control. That seems like a massive precedent.
It really shows you the depth of the concern, doesn't it? They didn't trust the existing AI model. They needed a totally fresh start, one they could verify from the ground up. And then Safeguard 4 makes the ongoing oversight official.
Which involves?
Intense, continuous monitoring of everything. Software updates, algorithm tweaks, data flows, all of it watched closely by those same trusted U.S. security partners. It's basically an auditing requirement baked right into the day-to-day operations to make sure compliance never slips.
And another key point, the scope here. This isn't just about the main TikTok app. The order specifically calls out related apps like Lemonade and CapCut, and any websites or other apps run by this new U.S. joint venture It's a full portfolio clean sweep.
Exactly. The government clearly recognized that a potential vulnerability could come through an associated service. So the protector bubble had to cover the entire ecosystem linked to that original ownership structure.
Okay, so we understand the fix now, the structure, the safeguards. Let's talk implementation. The EO gives the Attorney General a pretty big role in this final 120-day stretch, right?
A huge role. The AG is basically tasked with managing this non-enforcement period, making sure things stay on track. And they act as the U.S. government's main point person for the framework agreement. They're kind of the government's project manager for closing this deal.
Now, what about legal challenges? We saw states trying to pass their own bans before. How does the AG handle that kind of pressure, especially now?
This is where the executive order throws down a marker, asserting it definitely raises big questions about jurisdiction, yeah. And one other bit of sort of legal housekeeping we should mention. The EO also cleans up some old business. It confirms that this new qualified divestiture also resolves concerns from way back in 2020 related to ByteDance's original acquisition of Musical.
Ah, that brings in CFI-US, doesn't it? The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
It does. So this deal essentially clears the decks, but it's all conditional on getting a final sign-off agreement with CFI-US. That's the interagency group that reviews foreign investments for national security risks. Getting that CFI-US agreement means this new structure resolves those long-standing issues under the Defense Production Act, basically giving the new U.S. company a clean slate, legally speaking. No historical shadows.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you, the listener? One of those millions using the platform. The bottom line seems to be, this proposed deal allows the platform you use every day to keep operating. But crucially, it does so by putting in place these very specific, measurable safeguards, especially around your data's location and who controls the algorithm feeding you content. It aims to meet those strict demands of the Act.
Right. We've walked through how the government seems to have secured the technical side, the code, the algorithms, locking down the data vault. But here's the final thought, the thing you should probably consider. What are the ongoing implications of that remaining 20% minority ownership stake held by ByteDance? Even with operational control transferred, that 20% represents a significant financial interest, right? A profit stream still flowing back to the original foreign entity.
So the U.S. grabbed the steering wheel and locked the fuel tank, but maybe didn't completely cut off the financial pipeline.
That's a good way to put it. Technical separation seems robust, but that financial tie remains, and it's telling that even while approving this framework, the president was careful to reserve the right to issue further orders. If new affiliates pop up or new tech gets introduced that raises fresh security flags down the line, the door is explicitly left open for more action. So the immediate crisis seems averted, but the monitoring, that looks permanent.